Welcome to another video tutorial. In this video, we're going to return to the topic of moving platforms because I realized back when I did the initial video discussing moving platforms, I completely forgot to talk about how to make platforms go up and down. And I figured at the time, didn't really need to cover it even though I hadn't, because I figured that you would be able to kind of work out how to make it go up and down if you've already made it move forward or back. It's kind of the same thing, it's just using a different grid dimension. However, I thought that it would be a good idea to at least address this topic, show finally how to make an elevator go up and down, but also we can talk about how to make a fancy elevator where when you step into the elevator or when you press a button, you can choose which floor it goes to, and you can also have each floor have its own call button so that it calls the elevator to that particular floor. So I've got a simple map set up here to demonstrate how to do this. I'm not going to go into anything fancy like elevators that open doors and close doors and move and things like that. I'm just going to cover the mechanics of just making an elevator that can move between floors that you specify and also be called to specific floors. Okay. So the way I've got this set up is I've got a very simple map that's got a ground floor, a simple button object, the elevator itself, which will need to turn into a moving platform. I'll set all that up in a minute. And 3 different floors, which I've given different tiles just so it's clear which floor is which. And they just consist of 3 tiles. So one that connects to where the elevator will stop, and then you can walk off onto another tile, and then the tile sort of immediately in an L shape from that will be the elevator call button for that respective floor. So obviously, you would embellish this once you know how this works. You would embellish this to make this look more, like an actual map. But for now, this should at least help to explain how this all works. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set up the platform so that it can move between these floors. So what we want to do is press F2 and click the elevator. So this is the select tool. Click the tile that's going to be the main elevator, and we want to find where it says moving platform, and we want to turn that on. That will create a default waypoint where the lift currently sits at the moment. So it automatically creates a waypoint at this starting position. So what I'm going to do in order for the player input to work, I'm actually going to call these waypoints a very specific name. I'm going to call this floor and then _0. You can call it anything you want. So this could be lift _0 or level _0. As long as it's underscore and then in this case a 0. And the 0 is very important, and we'll get to that later on. So we've got floor 0. Next we want a waypoint here where the elevator is going to go to the next level. So what we want to do is take a look at the waypoint for floor 0. This is where the lift currently is at the moment. And we can see that the coordinates are -1, -6, and more importantly, 0, because this is the grid height of this tile, is 0. I've placed every one of these floors at a height of 16 above each other. So this is at 16, this one's at 32, and this one's at 48. So what we want to do is we want to make another waypoint, which we'll call floor _1, because it's the next floor up. And the coordinates are going to be the exact same for the left and right. So -1 and -6. I'm grabbing that from here. So I'm looking down here to get those. And then the Z is going to be 16, because it's 16 tiles up to this floor. So if I press OK, you can see it creates this waypoint here. It's just at the level of the floor tiles. So that's that one done. Then we need to make another one, which is floor 2. Same left and right coordinates, left, right, forward, back coordinates, but the Z height needs to now be 32. And this is floor 2. Say OK, that will create your next waypoint. So you see how the waypoints are literally just going up. So the last one to do is floor 3 in this case. So we'll add, is that right? Floor 0, 1, 2, yeah. So add floor 3, -1, -6, and then this is 48. Okay, so that's the waypoints set up for the elevator. However, at the moment, while the elevator might move if we were to tell it to, we're not going to be able to get off the elevator on the subsequent floors, because this line here that's connecting this ground floor to this elevator is very important, because that's how you can get on and off the elevator. Now, at the moment, if you look at the levels above, there's no connecting line from this tile, for example, to where this elevator would be. And we can't do that right now because the elevator isn't there. There's a gap there, and the map editor won't do that. So that's where the connect path bit comes in. So this happens on arrival. In other words, when the elevator reaches this waypoint, do this. So we don't need to set up the floor 0 because that's done by default, because it basically detects which tile it was connected to and already makes that connection. But we're going to need to do all the other floor waypoints manually. So floor 1, on arrival, we need to add a connect path by clicking the plus button. And this is going to be -1. However, not -6, because that's where the lift is. We want -5. We want it to come back 1 in this direction. So it connects to this tile here. And the height, obviously, is 16 because it's the next level up. Does that make sense? So that's our first waypoints connection done. Then we need to do floor 2's connection. So we'll click the add on arrival button again. Edit this. So this is going to be -1, -5, because we're going to go in 1. This is 32. And then lastly, floor 3, add on arrival, -1, -5, 48. So now, as the elevator moves up and down, it will connect to each floor, allowing the player out and in of the elevator as it moves up and down. Okay, so that's basically the platform fully set up now. So as long as your connect paths are set, and as long as you've got the right waypoints with the right coordinates, everything should be, I'm just double checking, just looking through, everything should be set and good to go. So the elevator itself is now all set up. But now what we need to do is the script, because we want it so that when we get into the elevator, it asks us which floor do we want to go to. You can then choose a floor, and then it will move to that floor. So what we want to do is we want to save the map, save the changes we've done, and we want to go to the script editor. We're going to make a new script. Let's call it enter lift. And this is going to be a display choices node. And we'll say, what floor do you want? And then the array can be ground floor, floor 1. Well, let's keep them consistent. So that would be floor 2, and then floor 3, and then floor 4. And OK on that. This is not going to be a character saying this, so we'll select none for the speaker. and we'll store this in a variable, let's say called floor. Okay, so $floor equals display choices. What floor do you want? And then the array of the choices is ground floor, floor 2, floor 3, floor 4. Now arrays always start at 0, so that's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's what's going to be stored inside this floor variable. So that's how we can tie this to our waypoints, because if you remember, we called our waypoints in our lift, we called them floor 0, floor 1, floor 2, and floor 3. So because the starting floor waypoint starts at 0 and arrays start at 0, this entry here, ground floor, will relate to that waypoint, floor 0. And then this will relate to floor 1. This will relate to floor 2, and this will relate to floor 3 automatically. Okay? We just now need to script the platform to go to those waypoints. So what we do is we click Edit, and we type move underscore platform. Now, typically, the first thing you would do is the ID of the platform, but because this script is actually going to go onto the platform itself, we can just use self to refer to the platform. And then in quotes, we then need the waypoint which the platform is going to move to. So we want floor underscore, because every waypoint is called that. But the thing that varies is the number. And this is where we then populate with this variable. So we're going to use placeholder expression. So $, open and close squiggly brackets, and then inside the squiggly brackets, $floor, semicolon. Okay, and that's all you need to do. That will now automatically move the elevator to the floor you pick in this choice. So let's apply and save that. So the script is saved. Let's go back to the map editor and let's assign this script to the platform. So we'll go to scripts, and I'm actually going to place this on stops on tile so that it doesn't happen the moment we step onto the lift. It happens when we're in the center of it. So when the character stops on this tile, we want to enter lift. We want this script to run. So let's pause here and just see if this works. So we'll save the map and we'll test it. So here we are in game. So if we move onto the lift, up comes our display choices. So we want to go to floor 2. So let's press 2 and up we go. If we leave the lift, that's made the connection work. Let me turn the, let's go down to the ground floor again. So that's all working. Let's just turn the nav on for a second, just so we can see the elevator turning these lines on as it goes up and down. So if we leave and come back in, let's choose floor 3. It goes up and then connects the path. So if we go back into the lift, let's go up to the top. There we go, so we can get back out. And now let's go all the way back down to the ground floor. Yeah, so you can see we've got a fully functioning elevator where we can choose which floor we want to go to. Every time we go in, we can choose, let's say, the ground floor, and it will take us to the floor that we choose. Okay? The only other thing we need to do now is, we're pretty much 90% there. We just need to obviously make it so that if we're on a floor where the elevator isn't currently on, we can call the elevator to that floor so we can get into it. So that's actually very, very simple. So let's just go back to the map editor. And let's set up a scenario where that is the case. Let's put an ID on this tile here. You obviously wouldn't do this if you were really doing this. I'm just doing this to set this up for a hypothetical scenario. So let's give this the ID of tile 2, let's say. So we need to give these floors individual buttons that call the elevator to that specific floor. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this button here, So we're going to go to character interacts, and we may as well do a quick script because it's actually very simple. All we want to do in this case is we just want to move platform. Now, what we do need to do, however, is because this script is not going to be on the elevator itself, we need to be able to tell the button what the name of the elevator is. So we need to give the elevator an ID. So we'll need to do that in a second. So I'm going to call the elevator in a second main lift. So I'm just going to type that in. And then because this is floor 0, because this is the ground floor, the waypoint I'm going to specify as floor 0. Okay. I'm just going to put true in, which basically means no. If there was other things happening in this script, they would wait until the platform gets to the destination. So I'll validate that and we'll say OK. So let's quickly give this the name, or the ID even, main lift. So now that script will work. Let's go to the quick script again. Just copy this, because we're going to basically paste this onto this button as well. Character interacts, quick script, paste, but this is going to be floor 1. Click this one, quick script, pencil, paste. Oops. This is going to be floor 2. And then one more. This is going to be floor 3. So each button calls the platform to its relevant floor. That's all you need to do, because the elevator will sort itself out, basically. If the elevator is here, for example, and we press this button, then it just knows to come down. If the elevator's here and we press this button, it knows to come up. It won't get confused. If the elevator is already at the location, so in other words, if we press this button while the elevator is already there, it doesn't do anything. It just says, well, I'm already here, so what do you want? So it won't error or anything like that. And you don't need to worry about doing any complicated conditional expressions like, if it's on this floor, do this. Otherwise, if it's on this floor, do this. Don't need to worry about that. Just simply have each button call the elevator to that specific floor. Okay, so let's quickly test this. Now, the only thing that I haven't set up at the moment is there's no way via the map design anyway to get to any of the other floors without using the lift anyway. So there would never be a situation at the moment in this map design where I would ever need to press the button, because if I get into this lift and I go to floor 2, for example, I can't go back down without going into the lift to go down to the ground floor. So I don't even really need a call button. But let's say I also had a set of stairs. Let's get into the lift and let's go up to the top. And now I'm going to type put player tile 2. Okay, so now I've put myself in a position where the lift is not on the floor I'm on, right? So I've somehow been able to get down to this floor, and now if I press this button, the lift should just come down to the floor that I'm on. So now I can get on it and I can go down to the ground floor. Yeah, so you can see that that is in essence, and all the buttons would do that. Now that the elevator is on floor 4, we can call it down. Yep. And then we can obviously, you can see how these scripts work. So each button effectively does this. So if I was on floor 3 and I pressed the button, the lift would go up to that floor. Yeah. If I was on floor 2 and I pressed the button, it would go down to that floor. If I was on floor 1, i.e. the red one, and I pressed the button, it would go down. And obviously floor 0, which I don't think I've typed, would be the ground floor. So you can see how every button does its own thing. Yeah, so it calls the lift just to that relevant floor. And even if the elevator is already on that floor, like it is now, It's fine. It won't do anything. It won't get stuck or anything like that. It still works. You can get on it, go up to floor 2, send it back down to floor 0, etc, etc, etc. So in essence, that's how to make a multi-floored elevator that has user input upon which floor to go to. Another thing worth mentioning before we close out is it might be a good idea as well just to add a global property to your game. What would it be? Probably as a number, which we'll call lift position, or lift position just to keep it short. Lift pos starts as 0. Okay, so this will just track what floor the elevator is currently on. We don't really need to do that for the buttons because the lift will move irrespective of which button you press, as long as you tell each button to call it to a specific waypoint. But if you wanted, for example, these buttons to have animations, which I think this button does, let me, for example, demonstrate it with this particular button here. Okay, if I was to add to this button, I need to give it an ID. Or no, I could use self, can't I? So I'd do self. So I could do self.frame equals 2, because I think I've put 2 frames on there, and then we'll put frame 1 back once the lift has moved. So it will pause, because this will pause this from happening until it gets to the destination. So this will work fine as long as you don't press this button while the elevator is already on this floor. I'll show you what happens. So if we go to this button and we first of all send the lift somewhere, move platform, main lift, floor 2, let's say. Okay. If I now press the button, it should go green, lift will come down, and then it'll go red. Okay, which is fine. That's what I wanted it to do. So it's just sort of a little animation that lets you know you're calling the lift, right? If I now press the button while the lift is already here, because the lift hasn't moved, it never sort of gets to the bit of the code where it says set the frame back to 1 again. So there are some things where you might want to keep track of if the elevator has moved or not. And this would be one of those instances where I don't want the button to change if the elevator is already there, because it breaks the button it breaks the look of the button if the elevator hasn't actually moved. So although the lift doesn't need to keep track of if it's moved or not, this button does. So this would be an example where I might use a global property to do that. So for example, going back to this button script, I would just have an if global.property, and then lift pos was the name of the property that we set up, not equal to 0, because that's the floor that we're on. Okay, so the lift is already, if the lift is already at this floor, then we don't want to do anything. But if it's not on this floor, so in other words, if it's not 0, then do all of this. Make the button green, move the lift to this floor, and then put it back to red when it gets here. If it is on this floor, then we could just do end, or we could even just do end, and then that way the button just does nothing. If the lift is already here, that would work. Or we could say something. We could have an else that says display message lift already on this floor. Something like that. And obviously you would need to do this for all the other buttons as well. So the button above, this would need to be if global property lift pos not equal to 1. Then self frame 2, move platform main lift floor 1, true, etc. And then this one would need to be if global property lift pos not equal to 2. Then self frame 2, move platform main lift floor 2, etc., etc. Does that make sense? Now, the other thing we do need to do is when the platform's moved to its floor, we will need to update that global property, and you'll also need to do that with your elevator script as well. So this will need to be lift pos now equals 0, because it's now moved to. So if it wasn't equal to 0, when it moves to 0, we then need to set it to 0 so the game can keep track of what floor it's on. So then the next time we press the button, it will equal 0, so it will do this instead. Yeah? And as I say, duplicate that, but update these for all the other buttons. But as well, we need to change the script for our lift to also update the property here, global.property lift pos equals $floor. So whatever number we pressed, that's the position of the global property once we've pressed the button. Or once we've, pressed the number on the keypad, if you know what I mean. So let's now save that and quick play. So now if I run this command, move platform, in fact, what we'll do is we'll execute, enter lift. Okay, so we're not actually on the lift, so this is going to go up without us, okay? Because what we want to do is we want it to update the global property when it gets to the floor. So let's go right the way to, we can only see floor 2, so let's do that. So that'll be floor 3. So now that global property equals 2. So it doesn't equal 0. So when we press this button, it should detect it's not equal to 0, so it will come down. But now it will equal 0 because it's now reached the bottom. So if we press this button again, the lift already on this floor. And obviously every other button would say that if you use the same code, but obviously update the code for all of the buttons. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that's clear. If there's any questions on this, obviously feel free to ask me on the Discord, but it should be fairly straightforward to set up these elevators. So hopefully there's not anything here that's too difficult to comprehend. But if there are any questions, of course, do let me know and I'll do what I can to help. But for now, that'll wrap up this video. Thanks for watching.